Coming to you live from the Business Radio X studio, it's Franchise Marketing Radio. Ready to revolutionize your franchise with AI? Franchise Now empowers franchises with advanced AI solutions, automatic processes, and enhanced marketing strategies. From personalized customer interactions to predictive analytics, we help you harness AI to drive growth and efficiency. Transform your franchise with the power of AI. Visit Franchise Now to learn more and take your business into the future. Now, here's your host.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Franchise Marketing Radio. And today, and I know I say this a lot, but today I do have a guest. They're always unique, but someone with me that is, I've never met someone who's done what she has accomplished. So I want to point that out. But I have with me a multi-unit, multi-brand franchise owner, 5 different brands in one market. And I have to say that's quite impressive to be a franchise owner managing that and very strategic. So I really want to learn more about that. But I have with me Nora Farhat, franchise owner extraordinaire. Nice to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Rob.
So as we jump in, I mean, I know for our audience and just in general, a lot of people, you know, they often at some point in their life think about business ownership, right? And the idea of having your own business. And I think a lot of people that have great careers think, I wonder if maybe that would be a better path at some point. But you obviously have crossed this bridge. And so tell us a little bit, how did you do that? Where did you come from? Tell us a little bit about that. And then how did you make that first decision with the first brand? And then tell us a little bit about the expansion.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love this story because I think it was a confused kid who just kind of had to figure it out. I always had the desire to be a business person. I loved the idea. I loved the hustle of it. I would see people that were business owners and I would always wonder, how do they do that? And there was something so unique and fun about it. But if somebody would have asked me, even though I would have always said, I want to be a business owner, I could not have told you how somebody actually gets there. I had no clue. I would see somebody and even the people I worked for, and I would see them own these multi-million-dollar or billion-dollar companies. And I have no clue how they got there. So like most people, without knowing where to start, and I used to think that if you don't have millions of dollars, you can't start a business. So what I, did is I followed the trajectory, started out in the corporate world, went to college, started out in corporate, and just worked really, really hard and hustled. I loved the environment. I loved business. I worked in manufacturing for many years. I also had the chance to work overseas. So I was in the Dubai, Abu Dhabi area for almost 8 years of my corporate career. I loved it, but that itch of wanting to be a business owner never went away. Like the desire of, I think I could do it better, or working for other people is not as exciting as working for yourself. I have always been very good at holding myself accountable. I think the same skills that make you successful in the corporate environment are actually a lot of the same skills you need in being an entrepreneur, that you hustle, that you work hard, that you can be a fast learner, that you solve problems, right? Great skills for business owners as well. At the time, I remember thinking, it's kind of now or never. And once you're ingrained in the corporate world, and I know a lot of people that work corporate kind of understand that, I think it's hard to walk away from that to go start a business. It seems so unknown and unsure. At that point, though, I had been working overseas and I was looking to transition back to the US. I had young kids. I was kind of looking to be back home. And I really thought now or never. I could go back to the US and get a new job, or I could go back and try this and see how I do. And that's when I kind of discovered franchising. I love the idea of franchises because I thought, here's models that we know work, that we know have, whether it's a history, various locations. These are concepts that have been proven out. I'm an operator. It kind of works perfectly with my skill set. I wasn't an inventive. I always say I'm not the creator. I'm not going to come up with the original idea, but I love the idea of you had the support system, maybe. And I think I also had some misconceptions of how franchises worked. My naiveness was probably a positive. But yeah, that's kind of where I started. It was this desire to always want to be in business for myself. I think I saw franchise as a way to kind of navigate the risk a little bit just so I can have also a helping hand if I needed it when I needed it. And I came back to the Metro Detroit area where I was born and raised. And I thought, okay, what's this market missing? And let's figure out what we could do. And that's kind of when I was introduced to franchising and franchising coaches that kind of really work with you and figure out what are you willing to spend? What are you all about? What do you love to do? And that's kind of how I discovered my very first franchise, which was British Swim School, which was a kids swim program. Short answer is my kids needed swim lessons and there wasn't any really good programs in my community. So I said, who does it the best? That's who I found. And then that's what we started with. So, people always look for some big reasons. I go, sometimes it's just the simple reasons, right?
Yeah.
Started out with the British Swim School, ran that. I ran it very hands-on. It was right up my personality. I called it mom and pop shop style. We ran it. We started to operate it. After about 2 to 3 years of running it, we loved the business. We loved the model. And I think we learned a lot of lessons along the way. One being that you work 100 hours for yourself, so you don't work 40 for somebody else. That was definitely
sometimes, yes. That is, yes. Right.
And I think I'm going to say probably for the first year and a half, I was like, did I really just leave a very lucrative, comfortable job for this? To go work on deck staff and, teach swim lessons, but it was worth it. And
and that is, I appreciate that perspective because that is exactly real. Here's the good news. If you're willing to do that, then someday you're not doing that. And you have the rewards that are much greater. And yeah, it's funny your story about, most franchisees, a lot of, I shouldn't say most, but many do experience the franchise first, right? And enjoy the service or the product. And that is the inspiration. So that is sometimes what it is. All right. So I want to break it down. So you started to do it. You said British Swim School was the beginning. Tell me the next 4, like summarize the how you decided on the next 4 and why. And I know it ended up with the most recent, which is Pool Scouts, right? Is that the most recent?
Real property management.
That's the most recent. Okay.
That's the most.
So all right, gotcha. So tell me how you did that. Like you started with British Swim School. What kind of clicked that maybe you should think about these other brands and tell me how that happened because that's interesting.
Yeah. We started out with British Swim School. We started out with the one location and then we grew it to another location. And then we thought, man, we can do this even better. And then we started to build out our own facility, for British Swim School. So British Swim School starts off as a rental model. You can either build or you can rent. And then we were doing really well with it. And we thought, man, let's double down. We invested. We were growing it. But I think there was always a thing in the back of my mind that said, I'm putting all my eggs in the same basket. I love the business. I love the quality of the program. But it really also felt like I was putting everything in one basket. My kids at that time were also attending an excellent math program and we would drive 30 minutes. I'm not the math person, so my kids need the math program. So I would drive 30 minutes to go to a mathnasium. And then I thought, wait, that would work really well in my community. I've been operating in this community. I know the target market. It seems like it would not be more complicated because it's also the same kind of customers that I already had in the swim school. So at that point, we said, you know what, let's do that. I had really started out where I was doing every single role, which I don't recommend for anybody, but I think that's where most business owners start. And then through time, I realized as long as I do that, I'll never be able to grow. And that's when I really started to focus on, do I have the right people in place? Not am I the right person for that role? So once I understood that, that allowed me to then say, okay, now my time's freed up a little bit, time to invest in mathnasium. We brought mathnasium to the local community. Again, it was still in line with business that I was already doing. Service, kids program, right up my alley. My kids need the lessons again.
Yeah.
So it all kind of flowing.
I want to point out to you that that's brilliant. Like one of the very first things that anyone in business should think about is, I already have customers. They're the best people to sell something else to. And like if because getting new customers is harder and more expensive. And not only that, but then you add value, deepen the relationship, create, more reasons for them never to leave you. And so that is a very, whether you were thinking that way or not, that's brilliant. And you're right, because you're just leveraging the asset you already started building. And then you said something else too that I think, again, just pointing it out. I like to do this, break things down for the audience so they really get what you're saying here. That it's impactful that we said you did every role in the business, and I think it's important that in a franchise system you do usually get an opportunity early on to learn everything and have to experience. In some cases you can't, depending on the model, but you should. I think why I remember hearing that Steve Jobs, he really started as a young guy running around Silicon Valley, knocking on Radio Shacks or computer hobbyists and selling his idea, right? And he didn't know much about business. And literally 4 years later, he's running around asking, why do we do it that way? Like the HR staff and this, but he had to try to understand the roles, because I don't think as a leader it's easy to figure out what you need, and unless you've done it a little bit, right? You have to experience it. I think it's great that you experience it, then you bring in the people. So that's where you left off. How do I replace me? And that's really where it becomes more passive over time as you invest. But go ahead, tell me more about how you would recruit and help duplicate yourself, I guess.
Absolutely. And Rob, I love that you touched on that, because actually that became my strategy. My strategy was, I'm going to learn everything, and then I'm going to figure out how the roles develop. So I did it with British Swim School, though I felt at moments I was drowning and I'm like, oh, I can't keep up. And I answered every single phone call for the first 3 years. I was the call center. I was the pool deck person, right? I was doing all of that. When I opened Mathnasium, I did the same. I went through the math training. And like I said, my math teacher's probably like shocked. But I was there. I was like, I'm going to figure out how to teach it. I did. I said, okay, teach me how to teach, and I have the competence. And then I was the front desk person. I became the center director. But again, I hired all the right people, right? I knew that the instructors that were providing the program quality, good news, was not me, but it was highly qualified people. I knew how to manage people at that point in time. I understood the dynamics of the business or parents and how parents perceive businesses. And my joke is always, parents are the hardest customers. And I know, because I am a parent, right?
Right.
Your kids, there's the perception of how your kids are doing. And then there's the reality that probably sits somewhere in between that. But I became the program first, and then I hired out. So I fully integrate myself in all of our brands. And I know when somebody says, how do you do it all? No, because once I learn it and I understand it, then I can staff it. If I sat today and I told you, oh, I think that we need 3 people, let's say on deck. I don't really know that if I've never been on deck. I don't really know that if I wasn't standing in the room. I don't know that if I'm not the one answering the phone calls. How do the systems work? How does the billing go through? I feel like I fully understand enough to know that I need to learn everything. I need to. And it's my investment, right? Nobody's going to work harder for you than yourself. It's your business. Nobody's going to care more. Nobody's going to work harder. So once I figured out how to do that with Mathnasium, at that point, I had British Swim School, I had Mathnasium. We could not find anybody to service our pools locally. A lot of it has to do with, we're in a winter market, right? This is the Detroit region. So the pool business is seasonal. So you only get very few companies in the market. And I know in the South, you get a lot more companies. But in the North, we really were very limited. And even when you find the one guy, you can't, I'm a business. It's not my house pool where I could be out of commission for a few days. It's a business. And we couldn't find the people that would hustle the way we needed it or get a repair. And now I'm shutting down and canceling classes. And then, of course, being an entrepreneur and a business owner, everybody knows, right? Light bulb. There's a business here. There's a demand. There's a market need for it. And that's actually when we got into Pool Scouts. Pool Scouts is actually managed by Buzz Brands. Buzz Brands also manages British Swim School. I already knew them and I thought they were phenomenal to work with. They were so great with the brand and British Swim School. And at that point, I also learned who you partner with matters. The level of support you get from corporate matters. So that was really important to me. So I understood Buzz. I knew how they worked. So Pool Scouts was a no-brainer decision for me. It was the service that I knew we needed in the community. It was a high-level service, which is exactly, the level I like to run in. And we needed the service ourselves. So guess what? Great business opportunity. And that's when we decided to do Pool Scouts. So Scouts is residential, commercial home cleaning, but more importantly, somebody to service my pools. I'm always the first customer on in the line. So that was our opportunity with Pool Scouts. Pool Scout said is a seasonal business. So then it was like, well, if I have a crew and I have the trucks, what do you do off season? Then we got into the holiday lighting business, which we also do landscaping, lighting. So we did that with Wonderly Lights. And honestly, that was nothing more than if I have the crew and I have the trucks and they're running, let's say from March till October, now I can extend my season by offering holiday lights. That, and I secretly really wanted to decorate my house from outside, and my husband would not do it in the cold. So I thought if we had the business, this will be my strategic way.
It'll get done.
Yes, to decorate the outside of the house.
Well, I would like to come visit. It must be beautiful
every
year.
Yes.
I do. Yeah.
So, it's in it, as you can tell, every one business leads to the other one, but I only invest when I think I'm ready. I don't overextend. I really don't. And I do that strategically. Like I said, I get into the details of my business. I'm sitting, knowing and learning how to clean a pool just as my technicians are. I'm learning the systems. I'm learning the sales pitch to get customers on the phone. That way, when I'm hearing, now I'm not the call center anymore, right? I can separate. But guess what? When I'm listening to my call center person on the phone, I can say, yep, that makes sense. No, that doesn't make sense. Or when I'm setting up my pricing, I also understand it as a customer, but then I also understand it as a business owner. Hey, we need to be making money off that service. Or, hey, chemicals should be billed separately. That level of knowledge and know-how comes from fully understanding your business. Exactly. And if you don't understand your business, or if you're relying on just people to figure it out, I think that's where a lot of people might fail sometimes, because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So I think the trick of it is you have to become the expert. And, like I said, so now we have Pool Scouts, we have Wonderly Lights, which is doing the holiday lights, and it also provides landscaping lights. And then at that point, I had built a portfolio for myself. I had built a brand. Years later, after being in business, right now, you're able to get flexibility. I always say you don't buy flexibility in the beginning, you buy it for the future. You don't buy revenue in the beginning, you buy profitability for the future. So we were in better positions. We started to invest in properties and try to really develop, I call it passive income, but nothing's passive. You're still working for it. Kind of what led us to Real Property Management is I started to invest in properties and manage them. For me, everything's a business opportunity. I think it has to be the right fit. I think that you have to be able to commit the right time and energy to it, of course, but especially when there's a need in the market. I always tell people, I would never open the pizza shop down the street from the pizza shop. That's not what we do. I say, what is the community missing? What can we provide either at a higher quality or something that people really do need in the community? When you answer that, I think you have a business.
Yeah, no doubt. And so let me ask you about the last company then. So I guess that company is a customer, well, maybe not Mathnasium, although maybe. But the other services seem like logical fits, unless they didn't have a pool. But yeah, you have you could do holiday lighting on some of your properties, and you could. So I mean, I think there's synergies, but regardless, what you're describing is you master things, you understand how to run it well. Of course, you've got the brand with you, but then you bring your people in, you train them well, and now you're able to leverage multiple brands and have this. But it took a while to get there, and some hard work and some long weeks and months. But once you're there, you do have these trusted people in place. You have a franchise brand, processes, and systems that allow you to do it. Like, that's true, right? Like, no matter which way you slice it, you're running 5 businesses. Like, you're the boss, right? Which is pretty amazing, And like, how would you have time? Most people say, I own a business and I'm crazy busy, right? So obviously you've learned how to scale. And a lot of that is learning how to, 1, be involved in the business, but then 2, learn how to step away when you should. And so that can be hard. And a lot of people never do. And that's probably why you have 5 businesses instead of just 1. So good for you.
In the beginning, I could have never told you I would step away. It was my nature. I micromanage, I could not even told you I was a micromanager until I watched myself do it. And I realized I needed to control the full experience, and anybody doing it, they could have done it better. And you should have smiled at the door a little bit more, right? Like it's not easy. But I remember there was a point in time where I was drowning. I was doing everything, trying to do everything. And this was really with British Swim School. And I ran into someone and he was speaking at a conference and he said something like he had 80 landscaping company, locations. And I just, is he kidding? Like how I couldn't get past a pool, like one facility with like a few hundred kids. I was like, dude, that's not logical. Like it made no sense to me. I mean, if I wasn't hearing him say it, I would be like, no, and it's successful. Like I was really, and I know it sounds silly now when I think of it, but I was taken aback. I couldn't even imagine what that looks like. And then I went up to him and I said, I'm sorry, I just don't understand. I go, I have staff and, sometimes they don't do what they're supposed to and the quality isn't there when I'm not there. And once in a while, this paper slips through the crack. And then he looked at me, he goes, 80% is good enough. And I don't know what about that just clicked to me. Like my standard might be this crazy out, like level of, I need everything to be perfect because the customer experience matters to such a high level, or the employee experience. I want them to be hired and trained and, know that we care and, they're important to the organization. But when I understood that 80% is good enough, it allowed me to give people a little bit more leeway. It allowed me to kind of loosen up the ropes and it allowed me to understand that I'm going to fully train a site supervisor, but then I'm going to allow them to take over the last 20%. It's not my job to get them to 100. My job is to get them to 80. And then their job is to figure out the 20% of their job. And if I did my job correctly, they're going to get that 20% all on their own. They don't need me to hold their hand. They don't need me to be like, oh, I saw a typo. Like it has to be self-reflective. Like they have to pick up their own. So it's almost the way you keep engaged employees, right? Is you got to also give them enough leeway to make decisions and to make mistakes.
Yeah, right. That's how they learn. And it is, and you're right. 80% is good enough because 80% means that most of the time people are good. They're good. They'll keep buying. They'll keep coming. There's times where maybe, you get involved because someone made a bigger mistake. But yeah, if you don't let go, you just won't scale. And franchise brands are good at coaching and helping people figure that out when they get to that place. But you said it, like in the beginning, it is very much about you learning everything and understanding it and being able to later on be able to step away and know when that balance is right. But anyway, great. I like that. Yeah, I've heard that many times. I think that's a pretty standard, 80%, let it go. And, and then it gets better. Like your team will get better if you let them get better.
Correct.
Seriously, if you constantly are worried about how they do it, they can't have ownership of things either. Like it always feels like it's just you tell them everything. They don't have any ownership. They didn't do anything good. I think if people start to really own what they do, they care. Everybody cares about what they represent. I think if you let them. So anyway, good, cool. So let me ask you this: out of the 5 brands, or not out of, but because you have 5 brands, how do you approach the market now? Are you? Is it just when I'm Pole Scouts, I'm focusing on marketing that way, or is there sort of this umbrella effect that you've created for yourself where your clients because I would think you want everybody to know in every audience that you do the other because they're somewhat related. So it'd be good to know that I also have a math tutoring business if you're taking care of someone's pool. But how do you do that? Like, what's the approach of all that?
It's such a great question because I used to think that, if you come in for the swim school, I'll put a flyer and you can also go to the math program. Or if you walk into my math program, here's a flyer, come for swim lesson. And yeah, I guess, do you do that dual advertising? We try. Does it work? I don't necessarily know. We used to be like, well, we'll waive the registration fee if you're a mathnasium student when you come to the swim school. But nobody came. Like that wasn't necessarily what we were finding. Now, do I have a database? Do I know my customers most likely having a pool service that are paying me at a premium rate are going to probably want holiday lights? Yeah, most likely. That could be a great avenue. I'm also in the service business, meaning that this is right up our alley. We've had times where we'd be servicing somebody's pool and they would say, our property manager really sucks, or they're just not doing a good job. And we're like, hey, when is the opportunity to bid on that property management contract, right? So now my property management company knows, hey, we could potentially be bidding on this business, or there's an opportunity here. Or, I've been out and done holiday lights at somebody's house. And then we're like, oh, they have a pool in the backyard. Here, if you've ever heard of Pool Scouts, first service is on us, right? Sister company. So there's definitely some of that going on. But I think the real value of having the companies is, like I said, it's the same van, it's the same warehouse space that we could use with our services. So I think behind the scenes is where we really maximize on it. Behind the scenes, I'm able to say, hey, we can have an umbrella insurance policy to cover these things. Or my call center guy that works with the Pool Scouts could also do the holiday lighting call centers. We are able to kind of maximize behind the scenes, I think, a lot better. We also use our expertise wherever we can. If I learn something new about the kids' business on one side, I learn it on the other side. So there's such a fun, unique way of being able to cross over. But the reality also is that these are individual businesses. I can't look at my lighting company as an offset of my pool company, because I think then you don't run it as a full business. I think then you start to say, well, it's okay, we're offsetting costs because we have the pool business year round. No, I want my lighting company to stand alone and to be able to cover its expenses through the year. So for me, it's important to still look, it's like a child. You still have to see them as individuals. You have to know they operate as individuals. And then I also have to know what is a good business and what's a bad business. I also have to know when is the right time to maybe exit a business. Or in my case, ideally, you do a business, you build a beautiful, great business, and then maybe I sell the business, and then it allows me to expand and to continue to grow.
Yeah, you have so much flexibility.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. So I just wanted to kind of mention something as you were talking. I was wondering, like, I would think that your team is, they like that. They like that you have, like, maybe they're doing pool stuff, but then they get into the holiday lighting as well. Do you think that it helps you with your staff that they know they have more they can do, and maybe also with continuity, like I know with the seasonal business, maybe you're always struggling with the idea. So obviously keeping people employed, keeping people busy is good. But do you think that also helps you with them? Like, it makes them like their job more and makes you be able to recruit better, or use it in that context?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had people we hired for the pool business, but we say, hey, if you're looking for off-season work, we have the swim school or we have the lighting. And then they get excited. And then we've had people that cross over all of the time. I'll have somebody maybe in the swim school side that says, hey, I'm looking for a few extra hours. Hey, great. How are you with math? And we've had employees cross over. I had an employee who was an excellent aquatics manager. Well, guess what? When they wanted to go off and get the real estate license, well, I have a property management company, right? So it's right up their alley. So I think it's so nice for people to be able to see a bigger vision. It's not for everybody. Some people are happy with the level and maybe it's a part-time job and that's all it will be. But I think from the higher level, there definitely excites people enough to know, oh, I can move in different areas. I might be out in the field today, but later I can potentially, work in the office or do something a little bit different. So people who work with us at that level definitely see, and I think they appreciate the advantage of being able to work for a company like ours.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, let's pivot a little. I threw a word in there. I'm sorry. I don't like to say words that everybody says, but let's shift over to marketing a little bit. So I'm just curious because your brands are very synergistic. And I know I thought I read it. I don't know if I got it right, but you've been with Pool Scouts for 3 years, I believe. Has it been that long?
Yes. Yep. This is our third season.
Did you like do some record breaking growth? I mean, haven't you done pretty well with that model as well? And I wanted to talk about marketing, and I also wanted to talk about what has been your methodology to ramp up these brands, like in that first year? And then how do you look at scaling a business? Like, is there a time where you say, this is doing well, maybe we should put the gas pedal on some more marketing, or, to drive more business? So like, how have you been managing your marketing? And what do you find to be sort of the gotta haves? And I know Google is probably on the list, reviews, because it's a consumer business where people talk. So I'm sure that's a little bit, but could you give me sort of your approach to how you launch a franchise and market it and scale it?
Yeah, absolutely. With a few of my brands, I remember we would grow right away, and everybody would be like, what are you doing? What are you doing on marketing? And I'd be like, not really. I kind of cut the marketing budget a little bit. I try to, you try to skim out sometimes because it seems sometimes like the biggest, heaviest item on, when you're looking at a P&L. So for a few years, I was always a little hesitant about spending too much money in marketing because I didn't quite understand how does it come back to us. But then I also kind of reflected back and I realized, oh, wow, word of mouth really matters in my type of business. We're in the service business. We're in the kids business. Word of mouth is a big driver of those types of services. So I said, okay, so word of mouth is really important. I remember once I sat outside a farmer's market every single Friday, rain or shine, trying to advertise for our business. And I would pass out flyers and I would talk to everybody. And it was me. So in my world, that's as good as a sales pitch as you're going to get.
Yeah.
I had 0 registrations from the farmer's market. But you know what I did have all year? Which again, because I pick up the phones, I recognized it. Oh yeah, we saw you. I saw your company out in the farmer's market. And I heard that so much that I thought, wow, what I would have considered a fail at marketing strategy, right? Actually pulled in a whole bunch of people through the year because they saw us at the farmer's market. Nobody registered, but then they came back and registered. At that point, I think I started to understand, oh, wow, marketing is almost like you try different things and you have to be you got to put your money where your mouth is a little bit with marketing. You have to try things to know what works and what doesn't. And sometimes you really can't even quantify it to say that worked, that didn't work. So I kind of shifted my mentality to there really is no bad marketing. There's no bad way for me to get, obviously in a positive light, but there's no bad way for me to talk about my business. I used to not like to tell people I owned a company. I used to get a little bit, embarrassed or like, I don't want to look like I'm self-promoting. So, if somebody says, where do your kids swim? I almost wouldn't even say British Swim School because I don't want them to think I'm self-promoting. But then I thought, wait a second, that's my brand. I love this brand. My kids are thriving because of this brand. I almost had to gain a little confidence there to say, hey, it's okay to self-promote. It's okay to talk about our brands. When I first started, I was a little bit embarrassed about it, but I think I had to kind of break my own cycle. I had to say, first of all, there's no bad marketing. So we are very aware. Obviously, we do the Google searches and depending on the business, we're spending the money on Instagram and Facebook. We've done it where we've worked with the influencers, try to get a little foot traffic there. But the real number one marketing trick is to run a very good company. And here's what I mean by that. My quality in the water in my swim business has to be top notch. My service, when we go out to service a pool, has to be the best. When I put up your lights, it has to look like, Hallmark Christmas. Yep. Once we do a really good job on what we said we would do, the business follows. That to me is everything. And I always say, because when somebody sees that kid swim really well, somebody's going to say, oh my God, how do they know how to swim so well? And that parent is going to probably answer British Swim School. When your pool looks spotless and it's shining and you have a pool party and you invite people over, I want you to say that Pool Scout services your pool every single week. To me, those things matter so much. So for me, I always say quality drives the marketing.
Yes.
So though it's great to spend money and do the Google reviews and all of that, which we do all of it, right?
Right.
It really comes down to, am I producing what I said I would produce? Am I providing the service at the highest quality? Or when an issue does come up, which of course is going to happen, how quick are we to fix it? Are we engaged enough? Do we understand our customers enough to know how to fix it? And also when to go.
Yeah, sometimes when we're having these conversations, I'll talk to a brand and we'll talk about the product and the customer experience. And we'll talk almost the whole show. And I'm like, that's the marketing. Like, sometimes the products are so amazing and so good and the experience is so good that, as long as you just execute that, then everybody talks and shares. And so that's huge. But what you were saying earlier is absolutely being a marketer and a tech person. It's about impressions. Like I started in sales, not in marketing, then got into marketing and tech and so it's kind of gone full circle. And so sometimes you don't understand the marketing, but the idea of the word impression, right? I think Google uses impressions. A lot of ad platforms use the word impressions for the number of times they show something. But, whether you're standing on a corner waving a sign or it's a Google ad on top of a search, every one of those is an impression of your brand. And it does have an effect.
Absolutely.
People think of you more. Yeah.
100%. Sorry. I just want to add, because I love what you're saying. Pick up the phone. I can spend all the money on marketing. If somebody doesn't pick up their phone, I'm just like, oh, And I watched it for years. And then again, I worked my businesses. I knew that if I missed a call, even if I was on the other line and somebody literally leaves me a voicemail and says, I want to book your service, I would call them back and I couldn't get them to answer. Then I would follow up with a text message and they wouldn't answer. And then I would add them to the leads of people I'm going to personally call. I could either never get a hold of them again, or by the time I reached them, they've already gone to a different service. So or they've lost interest. So you know what I equate it? I said, if you don't pick up the line, you lost the sale. So for me, it's your business practices is what drives, you're going to see the results in the marketing.
And you nailed it too. Like it's those little levers, those KPIs we call them, key performance indicators that make such a big ripple effect. And we think, oh, you only moved it 1%. Like you only moved my conversion rate 2%. It's like, yeah, but if we follow the math, it's like $1 million. So
100%.
So it's focusing. So what you were saying is, and I know the math on this because I talk about it a lot, but it's like 8 touches. And if you Google this, it's probably whether it's 7 or 8 or 9 or 6, it's been all over. But in order to get a hold of someone that might have responded to a marketing or filled a form, you got to touch them 7 or 8 times.
Absolutely.
And what it means is, it means that your probability goes way up that you get a hold of them. So that you have to ask yourself, how important would it be if I got a hold of double the people, right? Mm-hmm. If you know your conversion rate, I close 1 in 3 when I get a hold of them. All right, let's double that number now. What is it now? And that might just be those extra couple steps, those picking up the phone 2 more times or sending so yeah, it is those simple areas of operation that sometimes make all the difference. And one of those things in franchising that's helpful because we discover that, you discover that, you share that. We often talk about the networks we're in and the fact that you can talk to other business owners that know exactly what you do because they're running the same thing somewhere else. But that kind of knowledge that you just shared with me, with another franchisee, it's like, yeah, maybe I'll just do this one extra thing or 2, this one process. And all of a sudden it opens a door. So thanks for sharing that. But sometimes it is. It's just rolling up the sleeves and saying, look, I'm gonna go after that. And you're right. I think for us as consumers, we're just too busy. Don't take it personally. Like it's just you're helping that person because they just need you to reach out and make the connection. They don't have time. It's more that than they're not interested. It really is. So yeah, if you love what you do, then you have that motivation. So cool. So I want to wrap up. I want you, because you've invested in 5 brands and you're successful. What advice would you give someone? What do you look for in a brand now? You're pretty good at it. So for you to pull the trigger on adding another brand, number 6, what are those attributes you look for in a franchise?
Great question. So first, I'm going to split it into 2 parts. First, my advice to anybody that goes into business ownership, whether it's a franchise, your individual concept, it does not matter what it is be comfortable being very uncomfortable. Business ownership is not for the faint heart. You are going to be uncomfortable more than you're comfortable. People think that if they see me or anybody else and they say, oh, they own a business, it's almost like we believe that it's easy, or we believe that their road or the grass is greener kind of mentality. That's not true. I talk to business owners all day long. We're all probably hitting our head against the wall just as many times as I remember watching people in corporate, feel like they're in a rut and they're stuck in it, right? The grass is not greener. The only difference between what I call success, and I'm not talking about success from a financial perspective, the only difference between going is the person that keeps going and the person who allows those uncomfortable or crisis kind of deflate them, or they lose momentum. So for me, I really say that's the only difference, is be comfortable being uncomfortable to allow yourself to kind of push through the day-to-day issues. I think it's so easy to get caught up with those things. I've seen people go out of business for I'm not going to say they're small issues because they feel very big at the moment, but they're solvable issues. Yes, everything at some level is just a problem that needs to be solved. It's just today's crisis. I say I just go from one crisis to the next. Like that's really what I'm doing. It's not because I have a better strategy. It's not because I'm so much more intelligent. No, it's that it would take a lot more for you to knock me down than maybe somebody else. that
Right.
comfort level is pretty strong.
And I think I like to comment on that. I think that's totally right. But it's also okay because it's good that you feel that and you'll get
Yep.
through that and it'll get more comfortable as you go through layers of it. And then for
Absolutely.
you're constantly going to, it's up to you. You may keep challenging yourself. You're like an Elon Musk. He could have stopped at PayPal and just chilled. But he wanted to, save the world. So he's got all this ambition. And as he does that, even he is very uncomfortable. He'll say that all the time. And so, but that's just, it's okay to feel that way. In other words, it's okay. It's
100%.
actually good. And you have a franchise around you. And as long as you reach out, you will get what you need. I'm convinced there's no such thing as a failure of a franchisee that was putting their nose to the grindstone and just, going for it. So,
Absolutely.
you just have to be willing to be uncomfortable and ask for help and work through problems. And that's that. But it's the clearest path. I don't know if I said it on the show, but I said it before the show that, ultimately franchising is the most successful way to get into business. If you want to take a risk, there's other ways. This is, so you will feel uncomfortable, but it's okay, is what I'm trying to say. So be ready for that. But it's, but keep going. You were going to also talk about what you see as being the key attributes of a franchise.
Yeah. So what I love about franchises, number one, is that you have to have a need in the community. Like I said, you have 16 pizza places, a 17th might not be the right business, right? Unless you really see either a need in the community or a quality requirement, meaning like, oh, the nail salons in my area are not very good, right? So unless I see a real need, that's when I go look for the business, not the other way around. It's not that I'm sitting around saying, oh my God, I love this shop. I'll open one the same. That's not what I'm going after. For me, it really is about finding the need and knowing that I could do it better. When you find a franchise that, and again, I love franchises. They're proven models. They're nationwide. They've kind of worked it out. They know their business. You don't go into franchising because you want to change the model. And this is something else I always try to tell people. I run the business side of the franchise, the what I bought. When you buy the secret recipe, run it based on the recipe. This is not the time to say, I can make a better, cake or cupcake. No, I'd be like, tell me where you buy it and give it to me exactly how it is, because that's what I bought. So when you go into franchising, I think one, it's important to understand what is it that my market needs? What is it that I think I could execute at something that excites me, something that I think is needed. But then secondly, run it how you bought it. You didn't buy it so you can change the recipe. That's not KFC's secret recipe, right? You got to follow the recipe. I think a lot of people try to get into their own way when it comes to franchising. I always say,
I'm laughing because that guy, I think it took him 30 years to perfect it, right? Or whatever. It's a story. And I'm like, yeah, you're going to go in and change it, right? Like,
yes, you're like, I got it better. I have it. So, but I always find that people get stuck on that. And I always say, no, when I bought British Swim School, I bought the program. That's the knowledge. That's really, I wouldn't touch the program for anything. Now I'll shift operations. I'll change my customer service. I'll change the experience, but not the program. The pool service business, they're giving us how to clean it and how to service them and the best practices to do weekly services. Guess what? That's not changing when you hire me. Now your overall experience might be what I hope to be is better, but don't change the recipe. Be aware of what it is that you invested in when it comes to franchising. And then the third piece of advice, it's your business. I think when I bought a franchise, I expected them to give me every solution to every problem. And then I was surprised when that wasn't what I bought. And I think I've seen a lot of people go through that where they're like corporate this and corporate that. And I'm like, no, you're forgetting it's your business. Now answer it differently. It's not that corporate owes me an HR manual. It's if I need one, I create it. You got to shift your focus. It's still your business. A franchise is a great model, but it's not going to run for you. They're not going to come in and handle your staffing issue if you have one. They're not going to come in and help you wipe the floor down. They're going to tell you should be wiping the floor down every night, So I think that's an important part of franchising. But I love the model. But I think you have to understand how to work within the models that you're investing in. I think that that's a really important point.
Incredible point. And the reality is that I love the problem solving comment you made because the answers are there. That's the good news. The answers are there. You'll never find a business situation where you could talk to X number of folks that are like you and folks that created everything and are always focused on innovating, right? You have that. So no, you will have problems. You can't reproduce. I mean, you get like a million McDonald's locations. Maybe they have eliminated almost every known problem if you had a million of them. But you're going to come through new problems. But the good news is the answers are there. So you just have to be willing as an owner to solve the problem. And that's the key. It's not that there's no problems. If it was just you wouldn't even need you. We could just, just buy the thing, invest, and walk away passively. It's about you operating and being part of it. And so, anyway, good advice. I appreciate it. How can people reach out to you in sense of your businesses and the things you do for your community? Where would they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. Instagram, Nora.Farhat, or even on LinkedIn, Nora Farhat. I'm from the local Detroit area. You can see all of the great brands that I work with. All of the links to everything is right there. I also have a site called Upside Down Entrepreneurship, where I talk about business. I try to share as much business knowledge. I'm pretty black and white. I like to share. I'm an open book, which I think me and Rob can probably attest to, which I think is so important. I always say it's kind of like when you have kids, everybody says it's great. And then you have kids and then you're like, well, what do I do now? What do I do now? Business ownership is exactly the same. So for me, it's so important to talk to people and to share and to be transparent and open, because they're not struggles where it means you're failing. They're struggles. It means that you get resources and support and other people that will tell you, hey, this is how we tried it and it worked. And I love that. So to me, to share ideas and to speak with other people is so important.
Well, I hope that you make it back to the show. I would love to keep talking about the cool, innovative things you're doing. We didn't even get a chance to scratch the surface of all the different brands and things that you've been doing. So yeah, I'd love to have you come back, and especially as you continue your journey, because I have a feeling there's going to be some more challenges, more challenges you choose to take on. So I definitely be interested in all that. But I thank you so much for sharing your insights today, Nora. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Rob.